This is my review over Missing May by Cynthia Rylant. It was written in 1992 and it's a realistic contemporary fiction book. It is about a girl named Summer who was adopted by her aunt and uncle when she was only 6 years old. Previously to that, she was tossed around from family member to family member after her mother had passed away. She never really felt at home and no one really wanted her until Uncle Ob and Aunt May came and took her home. After that, she felt at home and she was at peace. She really loved it there. They were really good parents to her and helped raise her. They were very active in her life. Her Uncle Ob used to make whirligigs for Aunt May's garden. Gardening was something that Aunt May did all the time. About 6 years after that, Aunt May passed away in her garden when she was gardening, and this really set the family into a whirlwind of all kinds of stuff. Uncle O really went into depression, and he didn't really know how to deal with it. He didn't know how he felt spiritually with God, didn't know if he wanted to live. He spent the night in his car one night, didn't want to get out of bed. Summer really was worrying about him, whether or not he was going to make it day by day. Eventually, their neighbor boy, Cletus, came into the picture. And Cletus and Uncle Ob really became like best buds. Cletus came over on Thanksgiving night, brought over like a 1,500 piece puzzle, and just talked about stuff. Uncle Ob would talk about the spirit of May. Cletus would talk about how he wanted to see the Capitol one day. They really just kept each other company. Summer didn't really like Cletus at first, but she just knew that she liked the way Cletus made Uncle Ob feel and kept it off his mind. And one day, Cletus and Uncle Ob got into the conversation about a medium that Cletus had seen on television. I believe her name was Miriam. Yes, Miriam. And they came up with this idea to drive and go see this medium so maybe he could have a connection with Aunt May after her passing. Summer wasn't the biggest fan of this idea, but anything to get Uncle Ob to feeling better, she was all about. They drove all the way up there to go see the medium and found out that her nephew was there and was taking care of her home because the medium had passed like a year ago. And Summer was just like, man, this is really gonna send Uncle Ob over the edge. I don't know what will happen. So they drove home. They weren't really speaking. As they drove by the Capitol, and they could see it slowly passing through their windows into the back window, and Cletus was just like reaching out, wishing he could go see it. And something just came over Ob, and he turned the car around. He's like, I'm turning this car around. And they did. And they went and saw the Capitol, and Cletus was just like in awe. And Summer had a good day, and they said that Uncle Ob was very motherly, leaning over the counter, holding Cletus's shoulder, and they were just all having a good time. And somehow Uncle Ob found a way to want to live. So they made it home, and they're getting out of the car, and Summer looks up and sees this owl pass in the sky. She sees it flies away, and then all of a sudden she starts to cry. She hadn't really cried about Aunt May since her passing, and something about seeing the owl pass over made her realize that she'll never see Aunt May again. And she just bawled and cried, and Uncle Ob consoled her all night, and Cletus was staying the night, so he kind of just stayed in the living room. She just bawled and cried, and then the next day she woke up. She's like, good morning, and they just went about their day, and they decided to put all the whirligigs that Uncle Ob had made out in Aunt May's garden. And they planted them that day, and that's the end. They kind of just realize, just different ways of dealing with death. I personally think this was a great story. It really kept my interest, especially with it only being 89 pages. It was one of the shorter ones of the award, the Newbery Award, by the way. There's no pictures included in this. I think that it's a great story to talk to students about different ways of dealing with death and depression, and it's a kind of an icebreaker to bring it up because it's really hard to have those conversations with students, but eventually it happens, and so this is a good way to do that. I do think this book is iffy on spiritual aspects. It does talk about spirits and mediums and God and different religions, so that's a aspect that you might have to think about in your classroom and how to deal with that. I related to this because I, of course, have had somebody close to me pass away, but also the fact that Summer went through adoption and living with family members was something that hit home to me. My cousin is my brother, if that makes sense. His mom and dad weren't able to have him, so he's adopted into my family. And to know how it felt for him, or at least to hear how it felt to him to be passed around from family to family, home to home, parent to parent, I'm glad to say now. I mean, it's been 20 years, and I'm just glad he feels at home. So this was a really close book to me too, to know that. I think a good activity for children to do, or kids to do for this, would be to make whirligigs that they could put out in their garden. I think that's great for all ages. Another thing that could be done would be a graphic organizer about the story flow. And you could do that for each chapter. So, anyways, I thought this was a great book. I recommend reading it. And hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.